We hear next from Akram Barakat from Jordan. Akram.
When I was chosen to represent Jordan in this forum, I didn't know there would be also a delegate from Israel. Then in the letter from Mrs. Waller telling us how to prepare for the trip, I saw the name of Israel listed among the countries to be represented. It was really difficult for me to think how I would act. My first thought was I would not speak with him at all and treat him as our countries treat each other. But this was difficult from the beginning because his country was listed as Israel and we call it Palestine. I talked to some of my teachers and friends to get their advice. Some said I should not speak to him at all. Others said I should treat him just as I would treat any of the other delegates to show him that we don't have anything against people. When Gur arrived, I got to know him just as I did the other delegates. We all had so much in common that our political differences didn't come up. 2 days later, we both happened to be assigned to wash dishes together with some of the other delegates. And Gur and I started to talk about the Palestinian problem. I was surprised to find that some of the others had not even heard about it. In trying to explain to them, we had to go easy on the heat in order to shed some light. And although we were talking about a very complicated problem from very different points of view, still neither of us broke a dish. Only 3 months ago, I used to think that all Jews are Zionists. Since I have been here, I have realized that there are some Jews who don't have any faint idea about Zionism. So a very good thing I learned, first of all, is that Judaism is not synonymous with Zionism. Judaism is a religion. Zionism is a political idea. So we should not confuse the two. Therefore, although I still have some prejudice against Zionism, naturally enough, I don't have anything against Judaism now. However, as an Arab, I do feel prejudice against Zionism because of all the troubles it has brought to this part of the Middle East. My job here as a forum delegate in 6 different host schools and in all the others I have visited has been to talk about my country and explain my point of view. In some of these schools, there have been not only large numbers of Jewish students, but many Zionists. In many cases, I gave them their first opportunity to hear the other point of view, and it was my first opportunity to discuss this problem with Zionists. I was so glad, I felt really happy when some of them not only understood my point of view, but really appreciated a chance for discussion instead of angry argument. It was the first time for some of them to see that the other point of view is at least possible. Now, I have talked enough about Palestine. This is just one of the many problems between countries that the 34 of us represent. The thing that the last 3 months has made us wonder about, since all of us are friends, is this. Since people from anywhere like people from anywhere, as individuals, and since everybody seems to agree that wars usually do more harm than good, where is the point where people forget where their common interests are and start fighting each other? This is a complicated question, too complicated for students to solve. Maybe the fact that we have asked the question here in the United Nations will have some small influence on the official delegates who occupy these seats and who will be back here again next week trying to find the answers. Thank you.
Now Gur Ben-Ari from Israel. Gur.
As you know, to each host school we have been together with 2 or 3 other forum delegates, and by participating together with so many assemblies programs and answer the very much same question so many times, we almost learned the speech by heart. So once, while all the group was in Washington, we decided, just for having fun, to exchange roles and to see how well we could represent another's point of view. So I found myself a delegate from Jordan, trying to convince the delegate from Israel, who of course was another of the Arab countries. At the end it was a draw. Sometimes I realized how narrow-minded people can be by pursuing only selfish interest and by forgetting that there is something more fundamental, serving good international interest. Of course, it's not so easy as it might sound. And coming back to what you said, Akram, about your experiences and discoveries about Judaism and Zionism, I must tell you, and I'm very happy to do so, that all the Jews I met, and also most of the non-Jews I talked to, were very sympathetic towards Israel and what it stands for, and especially the Zionists, who see in the ancient new country of Israel the fulfillment of their age-long hopes. As this forum, the topic of this forum is the world we want, I can say that the world we don't want is a world where we can breathe freely in the morning just because no calamity happened overnight. We don't want a world where countries would spend most of their energy on armaments in order to bring closer the possibility of dying together. Instead, we should be finding a way of living together. This forum helped me also in another way. It made me proud of being a citizen of my young country. I was asked many times whether I would like to become a citizen of America and live here. And to me, it was like asking, would I like to exchange my parents? However, I find that there is much alike in your country and in my country. Both countries face the problem of integration, the problem of forming one indivisible nation out of many people from everywhere. And we are overcoming the prejudices which might have arisen. Israel is a country of challenge and gives to every citizen the wonderful feeling that he is needed, and especially the youth. What my country needs now, as all other nations, is peace. We have much constructive and creative work to accomplish. War prevents nothing and solves nothing. I wonder whether we will be able to impart our wonderful experience that we have had here with so many as we would like to. Maybe that is why I can end by saying that I wish the politicians would solve their problems the same way we all did. We lived here in the world we want, a peaceful world which, discounting the prejudices, can be achieved.
Thank you, Tor Ben-Ari from Israel. We hear now from Per Rustin of Norway and Hisako Shimatsu from Japan. Per and Hisako.
Of course, it is not only through the policies of governments that we get over prejudices toward other peoples. In Europe, people often go crazy about what they call the cultural policy of the United States. The Americans themselves, of course, claim that they actually haven't any cultural policy. This is theoretically right, as the American government doesn't control which books or which movies are sent abroad. The practical result is, however, that you do have a cultural policy determined by Hollywood and Mickey Spillane. Do people have to come here, as we did, to find out how hospitable and friendly you are? Of course, I realize now that you are so used to it that you're not inclined to talk about this side of American life. But you must realize that if you want our military solidarity, you need our psychological support, and we could never respect the United States in a cultural field through Hollywood as it is today. I wonder how many of our prejudices come from history books. I'm proud of my history teacher. When we used to read about how the old Vikings ravaged down in Central Europe and in England, he always says, remember boys, this is nothing to be proud of. Few teachers manage to be so objective about their subjects, and too many stress differences instead of similarities between nations.
But sometimes, when countries are far away, they don't stress the differences enough. When I was in Japan, I thought China was a far-off country. But here, to my surprise, many people consider China and Japan the same country.
What are some of the differences you found between Japan and the United States?
Well, in Japan, people who can have a car are the only upper class people. And then they use the cars mostly for business. But here, I saw a washing woman who comes to clean the house driving a Buick. It is envious that American women are given much chance to please or to develop their knowledge by the many convenient machines. It is difficult for us to do something in the world after marriage. But everything is too automatic and similar. I wonder whether they can understand the taste of handmade things or pleasure of delicate variation. I danced with boys for the first time in my life here. I was so shocked at the dance party in high school. If I had written my parents about it in detail, they would have taken me back to Japan soon.
Our social life in Norway is much the same as yours, but I did notice one difference in the schools. I got the impression that American high school teachers may talk about some of their political opinions in their classes. As far as I know, there are no laws, as in Norway, that can prevent them from doing so. I know that we at home may have any kind of political discussion in class, but the teacher has to stay out of it. I will never forget what I saw and heard in an American citizenship class of 13, between 11 and 13 years old, some few weeks ago. The teacher said, "Today we're going to talk about communism for the first time." The kids sat with wide open eyes and listened attentively. When he had finished his description, he asked, what could we do to stop communism? He didn't try to give a definition of communism and gave the kids an impression that socialism, even socialism as we do have in Norway, is a synonym of dictatorship. This is dangerous as a kid up to a certain age not has got the intellectual capacity to question what he hears in school, and as it is human to stick to first opinions, most people in later life will try to conform new impressions to this fixed idea.
I notice another differences between American high schools and ours. Sometimes in Japan, we take too many subjects with a speedy lesson. It makes us indigestion, and our knowledge we get in this way is not real one. I couldn't find in the classroom of American high school who is intelligent, who is not so. Here, everyone joins in discussion. No one fears that they should make a mistake. It is indeed quite different from us, where only the most intelligent one would dare to speak in class. American children are not shy. They say and do what they think to be right without hesitation. We must learn that characters from them, because sometimes we are too polite in discussion. Few say their opinion. Even if we knew the answer for the teacher's question, we don't say until he points us out. I think equality and individualism must be applied to Japanese education.
But Isako, Americans have been in Japan for nearly 10 years now. Haven't they brought some new ideas like individualism to your country?
Japanese know the word individualism, but they don't practice it. Something in a very old thought prevents us to do it. To be conservative, modest, patient, respectful, and obedient are the part of our character. I found a word that describes it. Introspective, internal. Japanese people have composure. We don't show ourselves to others. To us, when you express your feelings in big expression, it proves that you don't feel deeply, and you will forget it soon. In this, we are so different from Americans. What we think is delicate, you call ungenerous. What to us is modesty, to you is secrecy. Before I came, I knew that there was a difference between American and Japanese in customs or in the behaviors. But now, I know there is something very different in our mind. Just after the war, when we began to know the word democracy, a teacher called her class for examination. They answered, "No, we don't want to take it, because we are free now." We have been much in contact, but we have only understood the surface of each other's culture. We haven't yet understood what in each is best.
Hisako, you've helped us a lot understand what is best in the Japanese culture since you've been here. I wonder if all 6 members of the panel will stand now so that you can have a hand for all of them. Good. Thank you.